Welcome to Black Man's Corner. The last video was on critical race theory. It was part 1. Today we're discussing part 2, and remember, this is for beginners. So I'm Joey, and in part 1, often using historical and cinematic references, you had a chance to consider CRT's impact on critiquing types of systemic programming that have shaped and still influences many of our inherited ideals, like trusting, loving family, political party affiliation, sports team affinity or loyalty, religion, and hygiene, which to some is more than an informal hello to a guy named Gene. Think about it. These inherited ideals that Americans unthinkingly celebrate are unceasingly marketed to our youth, who didn't even ask to inherit them, but nevertheless unwittingly ingest and digest them easier than sipping coffee. Unfortunately, just as the primary motivation within a capitalist society is to make money, the motivation usually following gaining something is to not lose anything either. Neither making money or protecting money inspires a societal mentality compatible with protecting, if not advancing, the realities of racially underrepresented people. Critical race theory is a conduit for interpreting things differently and thinking beyond the length of our noses. It helps develop a lens that makes it impossible to not notice Shirley Temple dancing with the legendary William Bojangles Robinson, both happily stepping in rhythm. But when the music ends, little Shirley grows up to become a U.S. ambassador, while Bojangles lives a life as a black man, perpetually trying to prevent his breathing from being impaired. Critical race theory insists an examination of those times Jim Crow wasn't in the shadows, those times when Jim Crow flexed like a raven instead of a crow, ravenous enough to ravage as he saw fit, without consequences, until there were consequences. Of course, that is why Jim Crow is now hiding in plain sight. This is probably evidenced more by considering the concept of a jury of your peers. What? A jury of my peers? What does that even mean? Exactly. It means that the concept of a jury of your peers, while constitutionally sanctioned, doesn't define the term peer adequately enough to prevent these legally labeled peers from seeing things not as they are, but only the way they are capable of being seen by this peer who may despise racially underrepresented citizens, leaving those on trial quite vulnerable. Your interpretation of a jury of your peers is inseparable from the influence, if not impact, of institutional racism, especially considering a black, brown, red, or yellow criminal was seldom if ever tried by an all-black, brown, red, or yellow jury, unless it was a chocolate city lacking vanilla on a major level. That's slang for black city lacking white people. Hey, stay with me, okay? And a white criminal never, as in not ever, has faced an all-black or brown jury. I imagine if and when that happens, it will probably be a wigger on trial. Conversely, a white criminal has more often than not only faced an all-white jury, while a racially underrepresented suspect, unfortunately, is susceptible to facing an all-white jury at any time. That demographics often drive jury composition can't be ignored here, but no one is naive or stupid, except I guess the person who assumes that of another. The fact that this obvious weighty glitch in the Constitution was and is ignored again and again, some argue is proof that the judicial system was and is corrupt, systemically sufficient to the protection as well as advancement of white supremacy. Critical race theory encourages the tweaking of lens in hopes that things will appear differently. Those who embrace critical race theory celebrate Anais Nin's quote, We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. So both the white supremacist and Black Lives Matter protester are hard-pressed to see one another's issues unless an effort is made to imagine what others' perspectives look like. Critical race theory situates an open mind with opportunities to consider someone else's thought or reality and embrace it or toss it, knowing you've at least had ample opportunities to engage it, if desired. Critical race theory challenges racially conscious and or open-minded people to recognize and confront the history and laws that uphold white supremacy. You do realize that white supremacy initially becomes apparent through language, which makes perfect sense since some type of communication precedes most actions. Speaking of language, what is the most white supremacist term that is universally applied? Okay, that question was rhetorical. It's nigger, or some variation of it. Negra, maybe. So what role can critical race theory play in the handling of dysfunctional language strategically used to undercut another's humanity? Critical race theory is so broadly conceived that it will make most people better chess players in the chess game that is our lives. The constantly evolving intersections will alter your perspective while enhancing your respect of others' perspectives. So, when, as a white person, you encounter the N-word rolling off someone's tongue uninhibitedly, the question you could, if not should, put forth is, why is he, why is she, why are they being referred to as niggas, while others are never the target of that term, that libelous label, that mean-spirited moniker? Why is that explicit insult not assigned to other individuals or groups of people acting equally deplorable, if not worse? No one would argue that the term nigger doesn't exist, but like a unicorn, have you really ever seen one? Careful, if you answer that you have, that's racist as fudge. You just called or just implied someone you met was a nigger, unless that person requested you refer to them as one in the future, which I highly doubt. Remember, just because you have an idea of what a unicorn may look like doesn't mean you have ever been close enough to touch one. Just because you have an idea of what a nigger may look like doesn't mean you've ever really encountered one. And if you think you have, you may want to keep that to yourself. Duh. I digress. Let's do this quick exercise together. Only take a second. So now I need everybody to close their eyes and ride with me momentarily. Close your eyes right now. Imagine a unicorn. Okay, open your eyes. Now, collectively, understanding that you're all operating on the honor system, I submit that this is what most of you imagined. A white unicorn. Ultimately, what you saw is what you saw, but most of you saw your unicorn as white. Few, if any, imagined this. A black unicorn. Why would so few imagine their unicorn is black? That's for you to figure out individually, though historically, whiteness has represented purity, leaving blackness contrasted with that. Though then the question becomes, who approved these definitions? Certainly not black people. Nonetheless, if you did happen to imagine a black unicorn, expect a knock on the door. You'll be drug tested soon. You must realize that now, having seen a black one, black unicorns also do exist. Which brings us back to why must the N-word belong to every racial group except white? It's similar to unicorns. Think about it. When you hear the term nigger, you imagine a black person, usually a black male. That is, unless you are a Native American. Then it's red nigger. Asian American, it's yellow. Arab or Arab American, it's sand nigger. They don't cut Arabs a break. And interestingly enough, somehow the Latinx community was not given their own unique nigger status. I guess some white supremacists figured Latinxers were nigger light. Even Beatle John Lennon, perhaps in an effort to be inclusive, added one. Woman is the nigger of the world. Really, it makes you wonder how Lennon may have seen black women. It somehow seems unfair that one racial group can conveniently dodge wearing this label. Oh, but there are white niggers, wiggers, which I mentioned in part 1 of this series. However, all the other groups earn their dark, derogatory designation from merely existing in white environments or from doing something some definer deemed niggardly, while whites only pick up wigger when they are interpreted as acting black or wanting to be black. Perhaps a definition of nigger is necessary that doesn't limit it to all radical groups or racial groups except the one who coined the phrase. Part 3 in this series will begin with that definition of nigger. I really appreciate you spending time with me. If you liked the video, please like it. Thank you very much for visiting me in Black Man's Corner, where you're always welcome. And until the next time, power to the people. You could also subscribe if you would like. Later.